The State of the Rockies Project is a comprehensive program dedicated to researching and reporting on the health of the Rockies region, while also engaging community members to enact much-needed change. The focus of the last 2 years has been the Colorado River. Responding to growing concern for the management and use of the river, our focus has been to research its overall health from both an ecological and human-centered standpoint. With growing demands from human activity, an overall reduced supply in response to global climate change, increased human recreation on the river itself, and 20th century legislature in place, the Colorado River begged for a reevaluation with 21st century research methods. Our motto, Research, Report, and Engage, gave us the framework to commence projects. These included a trip from the source of the river in the Wind River Range of Wyoming all the way to the Sea of Cortez in Mexico. A dedicated group of student researchers spending the summer researching on a plethora of issues, and speaker series events drawing professionals from around the Rockies region and beyond to engage the public in reshaping the use of this river. All of this culminated in the State of the Rockies Conference, where Governor John Hickenlooper and Secretary of the Interior Ken Salazar attended not only to speak, but also to listen to the student researchers present their 5 actions on how to save the Colorado River Basin. As with every year, the student researchers produced a comprehensive report on the health of the Rockies region, this year focusing on the basin. A lot went on in the 2011-2012 year, but by covering the whole project with video, we hope we can catch you up. The battle to save the Colorado River Basin is far from over.
Here we are at a source of the Green River. Left early this morning, hiking for about at least 8 hours to go 8 miles. Slow going, boulder fields, snow. For some reason we're starting this in October. The official source is up that valley behind us, but looks like this is about as far as we're gonna make it today. And we're gonna try and follow whatever this is over here. 1,700 miles, Mexico. That's the plan.
So which way is Mexico?
It was early November and Will and Zach had found the source of the Colorado River. Their goal was to go from source to sea. Meanwhile, back on campus, State of the Rockies was hosting its first speaker series event.
Hello and welcome to the second event of the 2011-2012 State of the Rockies Speaker Series. Thus, the State of the Rockies Project for 2011 and 2012 seeks to present information regarding the current issues in the basin, highlight the implications of changing climate as a variable to the current system, and incorporate perspective of future generations.
I wanted to start out tonight reading a poem about Colorado water, which I wrote for the anniversary of Colorado's in-stream flow program, its 30th year. Colorado was one of the first western states to actually have water rights for in-stream flow. And this poem is called Colorado, Mother of Rivers. When I was young, the water sang of being here before I am, of falling sweet and soft and slow to berry bog and high meadow, and held me in her lap and cooed the willow roots, the gaining pools, and called me through bright dappled grass, and called me, oh, my shining one, and shaped a bed to lay me on, and played the flute so high and clear, and shaped the stones to carry me when I am young and full of fight, for roaring here and roaring there, for pouring torrents in the air. White, the Rio Grande, San Juan, the Platte, the Arkansas. So that's our Colorado, Mother of Rivers. That's in the, thank you.
I think the challenge before us is substantial. We have reached a point in our uses of the water of the basin where the Bureau of Reclamation has now acknowledged that we are fully consuming every drop of water that the basin produces. We have already reached that point, and the question is, how do we then move ahead with the obviously continuing demands and needs and interests of all of the 7 states, the Republic of Mexico, the many Indian tribes that have reservations within this area, and all of the diverse interests we have in the water and the rivers, and how can we meet those different interests? I think, that tells us that we don't really have a lot of time to just assume that this is not a problem, that we'll deal with it when we need to. I think we need to start today.
Back on the river, Will and Zach were enjoying the incredible beauty, but also starting to realize the immense impacts human uses have had on it.
You like fishing?
Yeah, so welcome.
So I'm standing here at the first point where water is taken out of the Green River. So you can see behind me there's a big diversion ditch, and a lot of this water is being funneled into that irrigation canal. Just when we thought we were gonna have enough water to start kayaking, a bunch of it gets sucked out.
Yeah, it's quite a different world out there that you're all living in. The unreal world. I'm about to go back into the real world here.
Well, we're about to go portage the Flaming Gorge Dam and paddle down like 10 miles before dark somehow. It's like 4 o'clock.
Yeah, it's, I'm kind of moving fast.
Cutting it close.
Here we are. Again. This time, in front of the Flaming Gorge Dam. That wall of concrete that's been making our journey so
look at it!
Tiresome.
That's it, ladies and gentlemen, the Flaming Gorge concrete plug.
They were off in their kayaks, but with a little more sobering reality of what the river has come to be. Our next Speaker Series event was straight to the point.
Well, good evening, and thank you very much for having me here. It's an honor. I have for years been a follower of the State of the Rockies Project. I work for an organization called Environmental Defense Fund. We're a national group, and we work on a whole array of environmental issues, but we do have a Western Water Program, and I have the good fortune to be the person working on the Colorado River. A lot of the time these days, we are talking about the Colorado River as a supply for some of the new or marginal uses on the river, the growing uses, which are the cities around the basin. You've already heard we have, upwards of 25, I've even heard as high as 30 million people drinking Colorado River. And they range, really, it's not just the Southwest, it's from Denver all the way down to San Diego and Los Angeles, and actually down in Mexico, and Tijuana even gets some of its water from the Colorado. And I've spent a good bit of my career at Environmental Defense Fund focusing on the river where it's not really a river anymore. The bottom picture there is the Colorado River sinking into the sand between the state of Arizona and Baja California. So actually the Colorado River is drying up on American soil. And I find that somewhat remarkable, and that's sort of an artifact of environmental management at borders, which I'm not going to talk to you about tonight, but is a fascinating subject. So what I really wanted to talk to you about is this graph, and I'm going to show it to you a few times and explain it to you, so hopefully you'll get it by the time I'm done. What it shows is the 10-year running average of supply on the Colorado River that's the black line that's bouncing around. It's a very variable river system. And the 10-year running average of the demand line, this is for the whole basin, so that's the gray line climbing up. We start this graph, the x-axis going across the bottom is 1922, the year the compact was signed. And you can see how it climbs as the population of the West grew, and we came up with more ways to use water. And the first thing I want you to notice about this graph is that the supply line and the demand line have crossed recently. And that tells a big piece of the story about why maybe what you hear right now in the news about people who are talking about managing the Colorado River, the tone has changed a little. If I have any thoughts for conclusion, I mean, it's sort of a depressing picture maybe that I laid out, except that I think this growing recognition that we live in an age of limits, that water from the Colorado River is not endless, that we cannot keep just using more. And we have been until this point, but we cannot do that anymore. That in that series of decisions and compromises and agreements and conversations, we might also be able to right some of the wrongs that have been done on this river and prevent future inadvertent problems that we don't really want to have to live with. Thank you very much.
The immensity of the Colorado River Basin and the complications of its management were starting to become more clear. How could such a finite system meet the many needs of a growing population? As Jennifer Pitt said, we live in a world of limits, and the Colorado River is no exception. The impetus for change was starting to become clear.
Here we are in Labyrinth Canyon, where we've paddled over 600 miles to get here. It makes you appreciate the river as a whole more than just the parts that everyone wants to see.
God, so many houseboats. It's insane.
I'm paddling across Lake Powell for about 6 days now. Keep reminding myself as I'm out here that there is a canyon below us and a river that is no more. And if we start from the belief that a river has a right to be itself, to flow, and a canyon has a right to not be 500 feet underwater, then there is something terribly wrong here.
Bald eagle and coal plant.
Well, it's a real pleasure to be here in the Springs and here at Colorado College and contributing to the State of the Rockies Project. Anthropogenic climate change is part of what I'll call the climate risk portfolio. So where are we heading? As Stephen alluded to, all of the global climate models. Here I'm showing an ensemble of 34 projections from 16 models, multiple runs from a few of those models. Every single one of them is forecasting a warmer future for Western Colorado, for the region, and for that matter, globally. And 20 to 30 years from now, I'm hoping that you all, college age, will have stepped up and you'll be in the leadership and management, regulatory, decision-making, analytical positions to help us deal with the changes and the challenges that this warming and climate change disruption, as Stephen said, will present us with.
With climate change as a new variable to the system, time isn't on our side.
So we decided to go into the heart of it, heading for Vegas. It's New Year's Eve tonight. It's going to be 2012, and we're going to go try and stand on the strip with 300,000 people and see what it's like to be in the crowd, to be in the civilization. And yeah, if you can't beat them, join them.
We're in Las Vegas. This is where the Colorado River water goes. It's fucking crazy. So much humanity. Look at everybody filming everything. So this is the Colorado River Aqueduct. This thing supplies most of the drinking water for Southern California. And so it goes 242 miles over to Los Angeles and San Diego. It pumps water right here out of Lake Havasu. This is probably the most major diversion of the Colorado River we've come across so far.
The aqueduct that the water is being pumped through in the Central Arizona project that starts behind us is actually longer than the course of the historic river all the way to the sea. So it begs the question, if we suddenly make a longer segment of the river, or some form of the river, is this become the river? And the old river bed no longer has water in it, so that doesn't seem like a river anymore either.
So we're about to be paddling on a lot less flow here. So up at Lake Havasu, the river kind of split in three directions. One side went to LA, San Diego, the California coast. One path went to Phoenix and Tucson. And now this path is heading down to Mexico. So definitely a lot less water down here below the Parker Dam. This is kind of the end of any semblance of natural river in the natural river bed. And from here on it all goes into canals in Mexico. Just kind of a weird spot. Weird Mexican music playing over there.
Will and Zach had made it to Mexico, but they soon noticed that there was less and less and less water until there was none.
So I'm here at the riverbed, the old riverbed of the Rio Colorado. We just took a walk over here from the irrigation canal. And this is it. This is what happens. The Colorado River. Just bone dry, old tire. Dead tamarisk. Pretty much the only thing populating this place. Just a bunch of sand and tamarisk. Dude, I think this might be the end of the line.
Oh, we're just paddling down the wetlands there. We're about 20 miles maybe from the ocean, and started running aground all over the place. Now we've started walking, and we're just on these huge mud flats. Tons of dead bushes everywhere, little puddles over here, some dried up. The river must have been a little higher a couple weeks ago. It's bad news. Ecological wasteland.
The two walked the last 20 miles of their journey. The Colorado River no longer reaches the Sea of Cortez. The sight was depressing, but they eventually made it to open water. The two couldn't have been more ecstatic. After nearly 4 months on the river, they had made it, but there was much work to be done. Right around this time, the State of the Rockies annual conference was just starting, and the 5 student researchers were about to present their 5 actions to the Governor of Colorado and the U.S. Secretary of the Interior.
And I was a researcher for the summer 2011 State of the Rockies Project. My section focused on dams diversions and water use. So currently there is a serious supply and demand imbalance in the Colorado River system. Rapidly growing urban populations are contributing to skyrocketing municipal demand. Yet agricultural users, which currently claim around 80% of Colorado River water, hold most of the senior water rights due to the Western water system of prior appropriation.
I focused on the law and policy of the river. The law of the river is comprised of over 30 independent pieces of legislation and court opinions, making it one of the most highly regulated rivers in the world.
And I looked to answer the question wondering if America's playground is under threat. So I was looking at the relationship between recreation and water and the future of recreation in the basin.
The current situation of decreasing water supply and increasing water demand in the Colorado River Basin really requires a fundamental shift in our discourse so that we provide new ways of thinking about water supply strategies that don't jeopardize environmental needs.
And my section focused on the effects of climate change on the Colorado River Basin. As you can see on this slide, the Colorado River Basin will have significantly less surface water available by the mid-21st century. This is primarily due to warm temperatures affecting the snowpack that provides 80% of the water for the Colorado River.
Thank you, Dr. Hecox, and you should be very proud of the whole program and the work that those students have done. It's very, very impressive.
Additionally, Will and Zach gave their analysis of the Colorado River Delta and its current health status to the Department of the Interior.
What's the estuary habitat look like, where it actually meets the sea?
The Colorado River is completely dry from a little ways down from this dam here. And then in places where the groundwater is close enough to the surface, there's a few little remnants of the river. And then the Rio Hardy, which is basically a wastewater runoff stream, joins the Colorado, and so there's a little bit of water in the riverbed. So there actually is a little bit of water where it meets the ocean, but you know it was not much. It was actually too shallow for us to paddle through. So we ended up slogging through knee-deep mud for hours and hours to reach the ocean.
Having just come off of the river, what are some of your top takeaways that you've really learned on your experience?
When we planned the trip, we didn't really know where the river ended up. We'd spent a lot of time in the wilderness sections of Utah and Colorado kayaking and rafting, but we'd heard that the river didn't reach the sea, but we didn't really realize what that meant until we came here and saw it. And it means that there's hundreds of thousands of acres that once had water flowing through them, and all of that is dry now except for a select few parts, less than 10% of the original wetlands.
You can really see the difference between these places that have just even a little bit of water and there's so many birds, and then there's these areas that we hiked through with just mile after mile after mile of tamarisk thickets, which is an invasive species, and that contrast is so striking that even that tiny amount of agricultural wastewater basically can make that big of a difference in restoring the delta.
From your perspective, is the delta the most significant environmental issue that you saw on this journey?
Absolutely. I think any water we can get down here is going to make a huge difference in terms of giving a wide variety of species habitat and really helping to bring the delta back to something closer to what it used to be.
It's definitely the low-hanging fruit on the Colorado in terms of making a big difference. And I mean, it's worth noting that 90% of the water in the river is diverted before it even hits Morales Dam here, before it even goes into Mexico. So it's not like the problem starts here at the diversion of Morales Dam. I mean, you guys know that obviously. it was hard for us to picture what the Delta would be like before we came down here. And so I'm sure it's hard for you all in Washington, D.C. to picture what it's like out in the Mexican desert. But try and imagine, what if the Potomac, somebody just completely diverted every bit of water in the Potomac, and it was just cracked mud flats and filled it with invasive species. How would that be as a place to go recreate in, paddle in, and walk around next to? So if you can just imagine, your local river completely dewatered, how would that have an impact in the local community? And that's exactly what's happening down here in the Delta.
Well, that is a really good visual comparison. You guys are doing good work, and we appreciate the conversation.
Thanks for taking the time, and we hope that this issue remains at the forefront of all the negotiations that are going on with Mexico right now.
All of that happened in 1 year. At State of the Rockies, we like to think that the Colorado River Basin has a better future ahead of it because of all of our efforts. However, the battle is far from won. In the 2012-2013 year, we will continue to focus on saving the Colorado River Basin for future generations to come.
So I choke on the sun, and the days blur into one in the backs of my eyes, on the things I've never done. Sheets are swaying.